and welcome into Deeper into Movies. This is our Bright Dreams and Midnight Screens podcast, and it's nice to be with you. I am Reverend Paul, and this is my sister Megan, and my mother Denise. Wonderful. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And this is Megan and I's podcast, and Mom, it's really cool to have you on.
I'm
We
glad to
usually
be.
start by giving you a couple of quick updates on things that we've been watching lately. And but we'd like to start, and or if you want, we forgot to say this last time, but you can pause the playback here, and you can watch the movies along with us. That's going to be Captive State for tonight, and also the documentary All Light Everywhere. And then we've got a couple of more recommendations, so you can pause and watch the movies and join us. And we hope to see you soon. Pause, unpause. Megan, what have you been watching lately that's worth recommending or bringing up with our audience?
I don't get around to watching as much as I used to 11 months ago, almost
Yep.
exactly. But I did have a chance. I like to sneak in. We're in horror movie season. And so
Yep.
I was really excited when I saw that Sarah Paulson was starring in a new one because she's a fantastic actress. And
Hmm.
bonus, the guy from The Bear that plays Cousin was also in it, which I had no idea because I hate watching trailers for movies.
What's the name of this one?
It's called Hold Your Breath. It takes place in
Ooh.
Oklahoma in circa 1933. So it's Dust Bowl, has a great set. You'd love the production design, Paul. And it's essentially taking some women and survival issues paired with um, a little bit of like ecological horror. It had a lot going on, but it was really, really simple. Mom and her two children trying to make it through during, a pretty torturous time in American history.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't call it overly scary. So if you like scary movies, but it's not like
Yeah.
you're going to be fine at the end of the film. Um, I would really recommend it. It was great, well paced, beautifully shot, and Sarah Paulson's fantastic.
Oh, that is really, really nice. And on Hulu. That's fantastic. Cool.
We don't have
Oh,
Hulu in Canada, so I paid for it, but I'm always happy to pay $6.99 and support a movie. The other thing that I've been watching, and I can't remember if I brought this up lately, is a series, The Penguin. It is
okay.
the Penguin on HBO. It's so fantastic. It's obviously Colin Farrell starring as the Penguin. We're in the Batman universe, but it's really focusing on his backstory. Um,
Hmm.
Colin Farrell
Hmm.
and Christina Milioti. She is normally like a side character, and this time she's playing like a co-lead, and she's
Yes.
fantastic. Um,
Okay.
Plays somebody called the Hangman. Basically, it's really character driven. It warms up tremendously after the first episode. So I'd really, really watch it, give it a chance. And it is not just for boys or kind of that male energy. I think women can get a lot out of it too, or typically women who typically might be turned off from this genre. It's not just gangster violence. It has more to it.
Very nice. Those are fantastic recommendations. Excellent. The I got a chance to see Wolves. That's the HBO one with Brad Pitt. And did you guys get to see it? Did you see it as well?
I've seen it. I watched
What'd
it.
you think? What did you think of it? I'm getting ready to trash it.
It's it's a repeat of Ocean's 11. They are
It's the
just
same
older
director.
versions
Totally.
of their younger selves. So if
Hmm.
you enjoyed the back and forth and how they operated in Ocean's 11, you would enjoy this. But I don't know. I thought it was kind of missing. It's missing an ingredient that the Ocean's movies had. Maybe it's I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
it just wasn't as lively or uh, wasn't as exciting to watch.
Did not have the
I,
spark.
I would agree with you, and that would be my recommendation that you can totally skip it because it's in the same way that Ocean's 11, like they just got too smart and the entire thing was a flashback. There was no way it was a mystery. You were supposed to be able to predict it, but there was no way to predict it based on what they gave you there. It was like it was so dumb. And it made for such a dry experience in the Ocean 11's movies. They just repeated it and it was just it
Mhm.
was there was almost no conflict and then they invent this thing in like the third act, and they have to keep reminding you of it because it's so random as to like what like why they have to do what they need to do. It's like a very very poorly put together story.
How many writers were on it?
Oh God, you must be. I mean, it's got to be a truckload for that kind of A-list power, right? I mean,
Well, but you
Steven Soderbergh for directing. I mean, George Clooney, Brad Pitt. I mean, Jesus, that's got to be a
maybe it's
truckload.
just a case of too many friends being together and they lose sight of the project because they're having a good time filming it. Sometimes when you have too good of a time making something, I think maybe the
Ah,
work is tougher. Not that you can't have a good time, but I've
mm-hmm.
kind of noticed that with these movies.
Let me just say there were two people in this movie, Brad Pitt
Yes.
and George Clooney, and
Yep.
there were no other supporting actors that brought the the side funny twists that you kind of characters that you wanted to watch. There, it wasn't in this one.
And
Like
it's
in
so funny because both of these actors became famous as like those people. I mean, I guess ER for Clooney, but I remember
yeah,
early Brad Pitt. He was the extra in Thelma and Louise, and then he
right.
was the stoner on the couch in True Romance, and he got like typecast for that for a bit. But they were
And
the
Rick
goofy side
Owens.
characters, like you're saying that this movie is missing.
I think they did it because they could, and they're
Yeah,
both older, and they made they're going to make some money on it.
yeah,
I think that was it, and it was kind of a no brainer for them.
yeah.
Um, not to correct you guys, but I was just looking it up, and it looks like we cannot blame Soderbergh for this one. It was John
Oh no,
Watts who
John
wrote and
Watts.
directed it, and he is more of like a seems like a studio darling, somebody who
Mhm.
did like a one of those Marvel movies and some other stuff. So
Good.
somebody
I was
trusted because Soderbergh's done good TV.
Yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. I
Well,
was I
like
was
Experience
that was an
and-
incorrect. Thank you so much for the correction. That was totally an incorrect connection there. The right, it just I guess they made the same mistake then as Ocean's 11 or a very similar. It was very eerie how similar mistake it was. It
The
was
thing is, that Soder, that was the first time we saw those guys in the room. They were younger. It was just different. Heist movies can be really fun when they're jazzy. We haven't seen a lot of stuff in Vegas at that point. We're, what is it, 10, 15, 20 years later since Ocean's 11.
sure, sure, sure. Right.
What,
It was
so
just,
what
but
did
yeah,
you recommend?
very dry, and just driven by the star power, not by the actual character development, not by
Agreed.
any actual stress from the environment that they're in, the little world they're living in. Doesn't
Agreed.
doesn't go.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Okay,
anything?
so but here's the other one that I was gonna bring up was let's see here. That's okay. How do I stop the share there? Okay, cool. Sorry, figuring out this new software. Have you seen Zeph, or have you heard of it, Megan?
No, I haven't.
No.
Okay, have you guys heard of this band, Die Antwoord?
No.
These
No.
guys.
Nine.
Really? Really? Okay. These two crazy kids are from South Africa, and most people sort of heard about them. They came to prominence when they appeared in this movie called Chappie, which is a Neil Blomkamp movie. He's a director from South Africa, and his famous one is District 9. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes.
Meg's seen it. Mom, have you seen that one? It's like aliens. It's another alien movie. We're going to talk about Captive State and aliens tonight. But that in that alien movie, it's like this dirty, gritty. It was one of the first movies that integrated this kind of CGI into it that was hyper realistic and like right there with the live action. And when you see it for the first time, it was like this visual that caught your attention, and that was like the look of District 9. It was this gritty, cool look. Anyway, in one of his further movies, Chappie, he casts this couple, Die Antwoord, which is the answer is the name of their band, and they're crazy. And they're Zeph. Zeph is like this Afrikaans word, which essentially means cool, but it's a kind of style of that they're all about. When they describe it to other people, they are it's like cack tattoos, like terrible tattoos. They went out and they sort of deformed themselves to do this. They gave themselves these crazy mullets. They embraced this style, this crazy style, like as their own. Anyway, this movie, Zeph, is a documentary that it was made by their daughter, and it's okay. So what did I want to say about this one? It's not a it's a documentary about people who got famous for the images that they made. Megan, you'll love it from the video, like music video perspective. The music video ness of it is they essentially copied the imagery that they were seeing in music videos, and their goal was to make something so shocking and crazy that it would just get attention. And the documentary is about, they got attention, they went on the road, they did all of these big concerts, and then succumbed to sort of the negative side of fame, and they broke up. Their daughter, I'm going to spoiler alert a little bit, but their daughter was threatened to commit suicide, and she sort of realized that she could ask him for anything, so she had them move back in together, and they saved the marriage. So it's this sweet daughter like saves their marriage. You get to see a little bit behind the scenes of how they put their whole thing together, but yeah, the imagery is incredibly shocking. When you Okay, so rewind. So I'm sorry you guys haven't seen any of their stuff, but when they first broke and you first heard about Dion Ford, it was crazy how something so intentionally kind of ugly could be so popular. It was very weird. It was something shocking, and like no one had seen like the look before. And then the documentary is so sweet because these two crazy kids were actually shocked by it as well and thought it was insane, and it was kind of like a huge stunt for them. Like it wasn't actually the mystique of it is that they live this way or something. And it's not anyway, it's kind of fun to go with on this little journey to how they sort of create their world. But the imagery that they're known for is so crazily shocking because it's creepy, it's weird, it's a little demonic, it's not of the light. It's really wild. But when you hear their description of it, they weren't going for some big statement. They were just trying to make the craziest movie they could, like the craziest images they could. So it's like, and they're kids, and then their actual child, whose name is 16 Jones, she gets born, and they just put her in their movies. So she's like this little kid running around, and then it's Megan. It's one of the sweetest things to see the behind the scenes of them shooting with their kid, because
I think
it's like this fun little play that they're doing, and then in the thing she's like eating a heart, but she's like, oh, it was actually like cherry sauce on the heart. It was very sweet.
okay. So that does sound intense. I will definitely check it out and let you know what I think. Should we move on to our evening the maiden course?
We could do that. I wanted to show you. I should have been doing this the whole time, but I wanted to show you a couple of images. This is them in their element here. These huge crowds of people that would show up. They'd have just like crazy tattoos. This is like their actual album. This is like they like make their own clothes. They like draw on their stuff. This is a happy couple. He's got his daughter's name tattoo face. It's a wild. I should have showed you the image first. That's the band there. He is in it. This is him in sort of a I don't even know what the look is. Uh, Imam? I'm
Yes.
not sure. Yeah. They have this. They film everything, and you see the C-section birth of their daughter in the movie. They just put it in there. It's like this crazy meditation on how intense images can be. This is Neil Blumenkamp talking about why he put him in Chappie and why they're so cool. And there's his daughter, who's this very just normal, sweet human who seems pretty well balanced considering her upbringing. Uh, totally. I'll save my other one for later. I saw This Will Be Different, and it was a time loop movie, but that one can wait for later. Yes, let's get to our main course. Which one do we want to start with?
Let's start with the documentary.
The documentary. Okay, cool. There is, okay, here is the cover for that. Uh, All light everywhere, and then we're going to ask and answer questions. There was two versions of this cover that I saw. This one, which seemed more like this sphere of light representing all the light everywhere. And then there was, wait. There is, let me I think I have
There it is. That's
an,
captive.
that's Captive State. And then there's this other one here.
Oh,
There's this it's like it's
And
the
there's no,
same light like the sun, but like captured through this whole like their whole tech. Anyways, kind of interesting. The two different covers there. This one's more of a free, and this one's more of a like held one. And then there's Captive State, which is the second one that we'll do. Um, nice. Okay, all light everywhere. What did you guys think of this movie, Meg? Why'd you choose this movie?
well, because I a lot of with most of the movies, it's just movies that I try to push on other people, particularly you, just to watch it. That's why I picked it.
Totally.
I think it was interesting. The first time I saw it was
Yes.
in right when it came out, so it was during COVID. There was a really heightened awareness of police brutality, and I think in that context, even though I wasn't super um, I was moved by all of it, but I wasn't as involved as I wouldn't say I was overly emotional about it, but I do think it colored my impression of the film at first. So I think its release was a perfect kind of time. And
Mm,
because I'm in the process of making my own documentary, I
yeah.
was really impressed with the editing and the way that he, first of all, did an essay film
Yeah.
and the writing of that. So taking kind of these disparate ideas and weaving them together using the kind of archival imagery he used, the kind
Uh-huh.
of a modern and very timely subject matter with kind of timeless aspects. I think that was why I really liked it. And I admired it because I think it was actually a really difficult film to make and achieve. And I don't think that we have enough documentaries that are like this.
I was surprised at how he pulled off the essay aspect of it. I was like, wow, he really it was like a class, a well thought through like 3 or 4 part class. Totally. Yeah. Um we could jump right into questions, or we could sort of have like a general discussion, then do questions. What do you want to do? What do you want to, is there anything else? Mom, did you want to say anything about the movie before we jump into questions?
oh, do your thing.
Awesome.
She had a lot to say about it.
Right on. Right on.
She had a lot.
I the I've got some stills here for it that we can maybe throw up to get people interested here. As the eye, such the object. William Blake. That was the first little quote that was on the screen there. Um, the brain invents a world to fill the hole at the center of it, and that was talking about the optic nerve and how there's this blind spot at the back of your eye. You see, you think you see a perfect image, but what you're seeing is some kind of bio software putting together the image. I've always thought about the optics of the eye. If you put your thumb out at arm's distance, that's about how many cells inside your eye are colored. The rest are black and white. And so everything you're seeing is black and white except the absolute tippy tip of it, and your brain software paints the picture so that your peripheral vision appears to be in color, but it's not actually in color. It's software. And the blind spot being the part of the eye that you can't see. I thought that was kind of a wild thought. The that whole they get into this whole thing about the exact moment that Venus transits the sun, and as a way of calculating that at known positions on the Earth, measuring the amount of time and the difference in the amount of time could be used to calculate the solar parallax, which is the distance between the Earth and the Venus and the sun. But it has this but there's this physiological effect where it melts into the edge of the thing and they can't figure it out. The this is that CEO of the company Axion that makes the body cams in it, and he's the cameras are changing behaviors just like the weapons when they're aimed, meaning the the effect of having the camera in the situation is changing behavior. And I mean he's basically just saying the thesis of the movie here, and it can change behavior in a very positive manner. This is the that first camera, which was designed Atlan gun, and they would film like birds with it, and so you'd break it open and you'd put in a little, and then you would essentially point it. He's pointing it at a bird, and he's turning it 6 photos of it, and that's wild. These instruments do not reproduce the world. Right. This was a general point he was making about how they're uh, they make new worlds. Like the study of motion becomes about, very different. This is exactly how you model 3D stuff, with the splines here.
I mean, I think that, and
Uh,
it's his relation of that to the camera, like right frames per
yeah,
second. It's not, and we can't actually take in 100% of information. I think we would overload, and so we do fill
yeah,
in those holes. But I think
yeah,
William Blake, I mean, a lot of what he was talking about, and so, and the Doors and other subsequent, lots of other like people and artists down the line, is he was talking about doors of perception. So the
yeah,
idea that the instrument can't record some kind of objective truth was very true in William. That was one of many themes, but a very important theme of William Blake. So the subject, the object is what it's recorded by. It is like
yeah,
you see um, what you are as well. I mean, there's a little bit doors of perception are really important in Blake's work, and obviously here we have a door of perception, which is the camera, um, or our eyes, or working both together. And so I think the
yeah,
interplay of those two things was very interesting. Even if we tried to recreate the point of view with a body cam, which is this one is really going to, is we're talking about body cameras and how we can take on the human eye. Well, it's almost impossible to perfectly know what somebody else would be able to see, like it is with any senses. Um,
sure.
and also to the idea that that would have any kind of pure objectivity or perfection is ridiculous because it's flawed. It's
Right,
an
right.
imperfect
You
tool,
can't
human.
you can't make a precise point with a film or a video or an image. You're not making a precise point with it, right?
Exactly. So I think that was for
You're
me a big theme that she stated up front, like you said.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so would you have a question that it came up and it made for you and to
Can I just say something
start
I just
us?
liked about it a lot?
Sure.
The part with the pigeons, like the moment they figure out the camera, they get it on pigeons. I didn't know we had like awesome drone footage, like, 1895. But like this is like this chaotic drone footage. They tried to use it. They tried to use the pigeons to like, they of course it's imprecise. It's, the timing mechanisms aren't great, but these are some of the pictures they got of these little sweet little pigeons from this from the sky. A view of the world that you can't have, and this is well before human flight. You're getting these aerial pictures from pigeons.
Super exciting. I mean, and then that's all
Very
kind of
exciting.
ones to look at once think about drones coming out, particularly in documentary genre. Like all of a
Totally.
sudden, every documentary I was seeing, I was watching one about Michael Jackson, and I saw the
Yeah.
roof of every single place he ever abused a child in, as if it was relevant or informative. And I think the filmmaker was so excited to use a drone. They're like, "All right,
I
guys,
know.
it's like
Well,
established."
it's so beautiful. It's such beautiful imagery, and it's such a beautiful. It makes any neighborhood look scenic and amazing. like,
Oh,
and
it can make a
and
slum look completely like a postcard of like, wow, I would love to go to this part of Rio, right? It's so colorful
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. And every movie that had any kind of budget would try to have a crane shot, establishing or a finishing crane shot, since the fucking 50s. And so it's like it's cheap crane shots, it's infinite crane shots.
it's really
But
changed than like how you choose to put where you choose to put the camera and why. And I think it's becoming
yeah,
more as it gets cheaper, it's more intentional. Like, why are you choosing to do that? And
hmm
but I digress.
it's a good point though. Mom, I figure at least part of the reason why this came about was when I was very young, I was probably two, maybe I don't know what version of two. We went as a family and saw The Empire Strikes Back. And one of my first memories of the movies ever was running down the uh, space between the chairs, and I turned around and I looked up, and it's this scene where they're in the asteroid and the Millennial Falcon's running away and this giant thing's trying to eat it, and I was like, ah, and like freaking out, and you're like, get in here. And on the way home that night, it was you and it was Mark and it was a bunch of people you knew or family or something. You have to tell me. But the whole way home, everybody was animated talking about what this movie meant. The symbols, the Obi-Wan, just what was Yoda? What did it all mean? You guys were like there was a like an electricity in the car, and I remember when you got us all home, I remember falling asleep, and I have this clear memory of laying next. There was a fern next to where I was falling asleep, and you guys were still chatting about it. I remember thinking how cool it was that a movie could get the adults talking in such a passionate way. So the post movie coffee, that was my first experience of it.
Wow,
Oh,
that's a good memory. I mean, that whole trilogy of movies came out, I mean, you are feeding those movies not to children, but you were feeding them to the boomers today. You fed
Yeah,
them to Vietnam vets. You fed them to I mean, those movies were made for the time. I'm not sure they would
yeah,
capture people the same today because
yeah,
it wasn't the graphics, it was
yeah.
the subliminal message. Remember how the beginnings of them always came out and had the music and gave you the kind of the theme of what they were going to teach you.
or the credits.
Yeah, but
Sure. Da 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 da.
they set you, they primed you for that from the beginning.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, they
Well, it was
did.
the rebellion, and it was versus the empire, and that's during not
Yeah.
during the Vietnam War, but like on the heels of sorting out the Vietnam War.
Well, it
And
was after it, yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
But the
But
audience was not a younger generation. The audience was really 20 and 30 somethings. I think
older people. Yeah.
it was. Hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Well,
I was
it absolutely.
watched the Star Wars trilogy from a very young age on repeat.
I'm sure. I'm sure
It
sure we lectured you on it as well.
was the only thing that was on. Remember, we would put the VCR that was attached to the TV, and you would attach it to the lighter in the car that was a power source, a cigarette lighter.
I remember that. I remember that system. That
You
was
would
a
let
good
us
movie
take
system.
out the seats, which I'm sure
Yeah.
you'd be arrested for today. And then we could put, once we got out of the city, you let us put pillowcases in the pop outs of the minivan. And then we would watch, and like, I always
This
had
is awesome.
plans and dreams of watching a movie other than one of the three Star Wars movies, but no, that's all we watched. So I'll always have a love
I,
for them.
we watched those movies hundreds of times, and the real sad thing about when they made the new ones and then the new ones is that George Lucas was the first person to realize the money in the toys, and so all he wanted was the toy market, and then that's all Star Wars was toys in freaking Kmart's for 2 decades, right? Like, it's like, and
Yeah.
it was like it was like the best selling. I don't know if Barbie outsold it at some point, but for a while it was like serious money. And then when they made the remakes, they made them for children. Now you can go to watch something that is Star Wars in quotes, and it is literally, if you are 8, you're a little too old. You probably get a little bored with the themes. It's like what are we doing? So it's funny that the original one was for adults and for older people. That makes a
I think
ton of
it
sense
was.
because they're buying the tickets.
That's who waited in line were adults.
Yeah, but
Kids
also,
weren't a market. Kids weren't a commodity market like they are now.
well,
That's not. It wasn't the same.
I
That's
think
true.
Disney would definitely beg to differ with the idea that it hasn't been insanely lucrative. Like, I mean, now they have the
No,
Millennial
no, it has been
Falcon at
lucrative.
Disney World. I mean, the amount of money that they've made off of, like, I think they spent $1 billion to acquire the rights. It's absurd. I mean, it was like
Absurd.
everybody thought they were crazy, but it's made so much. Also, I would like to note that arguably most television that's
Yeah,
for children content was made in order to sell toys during commercial breaks. Maybe
a
not.
thousand percent. Right,
So
right. It's
a lot of
a
it
cart
was
before
great.
the horse kind of thing.
But we've had great. What I've noticed is that while there's Pixar movies that have a lot of adult jokes slid in there, I
Sure.
think that children's movies have gotten softer and more like coddling. Whereas, like Dark Crystal,
Yeah,
Willow, Labyrinth,
yeah.
that was scary shit,
Scary.
and it was
It had a
very
darker side to it. It was this, and like especially the Dark Crystal. It was this weird yin yang thing where it was like the Skeksis were dark and the Mystics were kind of like a little lazy, like homeless, but also kind or something like that. And it was, yeah, watching him as a kid. It was kind of talking about darkness or evil, right? And it was talking about it in kind of a coded way. You didn't really get a chance to talk about it in that many ways. You could like make things like very, very, very bad, clearly dark. But this was like a kids movie, so I was like, wait, what? There's like light and dark. It was very odd. Yeah. Mom,
With
what did you think about it? That with the like when you saw Labyrinth come out and stuff with David Bowie and everything running all over the place. What was that?
Do you know I have never seen it?
What?
You never seen Labyrinth?
You
Dude, I've
guys
seen
watch.
Labyrinth 100 times.
I know you have. You guys
It was on
watched
HBO for like a year.
that, and what is the one with
Conan the Barbarian,
Thor?
Kroll,
No, the one with Robin Wright, the Princess Bride.
All right.
Princess Bride. We saw that
I
hundreds of
have never
times.
watched either one of them because it
What?
was you guys watched it over and over, and I must have had what an hour and a half of free time.
Oh
Now
Right.
my
my.
time wasn't free, but
Right. But like they're
but you
entertained.
didn't move from the television, even on the 50th time.
So you
So
you just
You know,
put it
I
on.
didn't
that movie, it has a lot of rewatch
have to
appeal.
watch it with
Yeah.
you. I don't think you ever asked me to watch it. I think you guys were just so immersed in it that
Is this the first
no,
time we've asked you to watch a movie with us, Mom? Is this the first time? I'm
maybe
almost
I
50.
die for movies all the time.
I've never actually seen it. I have to say, so I can't even
Wow.
discuss it with you.
No, it's wild. No, no. It was okay. Do you remember
For
how
becoming
sweet the
mom, I can
Ewoks were?
understand. You just
What
want
was that?
you'll like you're just like I'll give it up. I don't need to see
I
that
mean,
movie.
those movies were gold for me. It was
Right,
like,
because they were super entertainment. Dude, I couldn't sleep last night, and I watched like a 50-minute documentary on Gen X, and all the stuff they're saying about millennials or Gen Z. There's no houses. They're earning less than their parents. They were saying that on national news in like the 80s and the 90s. It's the same message over and over again. It's like the culture's been in decline for some time. This it's hard to find a Gen X anything that isn't just about nostalgia for television shows. It's just everybody watched the same television shows, and we were the first generation that was raised on TV, like just TV all the time, like 300,000 hours of TV of commercials by the time you get to be 18. I stopped. Okay, tell you two stories. When I went to CalArts, one nice part of the investment of sending me to art school was there were no TVs there. There
right.
was the only TV there was like some crazy one in the corner, and it was like not being on TV for my entire life and then stopping cold turkey was like getting off a drug. It took months for like my brain to thaw the fuck out, and when I saw my first TV in like 4 or 5 months, I was like the drug like phenomenon. I was like, I will never watch TV again. I haven't. I don't watch stuff. I watch movies, but that's intentional. You sit down, you watch it, beginning, middle, end, and then it's over. It's not like just having the tube on all the time or whatever. I don't do it. But anyway, Meg, on our Tuesday night show on the Bowling League, we play video games, and one of the games we played is Battlefront 2, which is all Star Wars themed. And Mom, you know how much Eric and I loved Ewoks. We had like pet Ewoks that we like slept with. They were like our little comfort. They're like these little things that we like carried around. It was like comfort, like little animals, right?
Right.
We loved Ewoks. I can't tell you how many times I've seen The Empire Strikes Back and love those Ewok scenes. Now I play the Empire and I show up with my laser blaster and it's my job to burn the village.
My
And
God,
like shoot these. It's so. What?
you're
I've actually watched you on those on your
Really?
bowling podcast, and I'm amazed that you can even kill them. And most of the time, at some point during the game, you actually admit, I can't believe I'm killing these, and I'm getting
Maybe.
points for doing it. So I
I'm glad you caught that. That's it. It's the worst thing in the world to be like, okay, now it's my job to kill Luke Skywalker. He's like your hero as a child. I'm
Princess
like the
Leia.
same age as he was when he was going through the things. It's like insane how lined up the whole thing is.
you're
Yeah,
like the electronic
That's true.
version of LARPing.
it's okay. So All Light Everywhere talks about how the camera creates another world. Isn't that what all the VR and everything is? Isn't that what a whole childhood of watching television is? You're in an electronic world with other people in a certain way.
I mean, I don't know because I think like yes, a lifetime watching television, but I think it's not interactive in the same way. It's more like I mean, maybe I'm just like everybody else that's getting too old, but I think there's a lot of like really cool benefits about VR. But if you're thinking about, we're not
Yeah,
really there yet for people to be in that all the time, or the
sure.
majority of people aren't doing that, but they are living as projections of themselves in social media, which I
That's
honestly
right.
don't think is great. I
No.
mean, I think I would watch a movie like Jurassic Park or something like that, and then I would go
Yeah.
out and enact it with, or like reenact it with my friends in the real world. And I think, like with it in my head, like pretending to get electrocuted and falling down, covering myself in mud, trying to blow dust off something, because those images in the movies, they were so magical to me that I wanted to create that a three-dimensional version, um, or a real life version of this like beautiful image that carried with it so many other things. I don't know. It's
So
different.
here's what I think that the movie was really. I mean, I see so many layers in it, but based on what
Mm.
Megan is just saying, when we see something with our eyes,
Yeah.
we we see we see what we really want to see, and we're filling
Mm.
in a lot of the pieces that our
That's
own
right.
eyeball and our optic nerve does not see.
Yeah.
And there's a statement in there, and it says everything we make is an autobiography. So when we see, we are making our autobiography. And then what he goes on to talk about
Yeah.
are cameras and technical ways of capturing what either the eye sees and makes up or what the eye doesn't see. And they kind of look at both of those angles. But again, we are still creating an autobiography, even with our technical aspects. And if you really want to take this as far as it is into AI today,
Yeah.
I don't know if AI will ever be not part of a human autobiographical input, but I think it will because at its core it is. But
Mm.
that's what this movie to me was themed is we have eyes, we see, we live, we narrate, and then we do it in another way with a drone or I mean, a drone is taking um, pictures, photos, but we end up we manipulate that in some way, and we put a narrative on top of it. So all of the information that we gather by technical means, we
Mm.
still put a narrative on it. So even if it's a photo of the Earth, we still put a narrative on it, which makes it an autobiography.
Absolutely. Like we can't like we should know that about ourselves that we're
Mhm.
constantly making up worlds around just through our senses, through the stories we tell ourselves, and then through our art too. It's kind of like why art therapy would work, right? When people say,
Right.
make something," and then you can say, "Oh, look, you can see part of your subconscious coming through here or whatever." Because yeah, how can you how as the whatever that is, the energy of the universe, the creativity is passing through you. How can it not reflect the artist, right? In some way.
Okay.
Uh,
And you hit exactly where I was going to go with this is energy.
mm,
Nothing ever is the same. If you see it now, in a split second, it's different. A split second, it's different, and it's different. There is nothing on this earth that stays the same. Everything
mm,
changes. So
totally.
you just said that. We see something and we put our energy into it. And by the time we even put our energy into it, it's already changed.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Mom, because it's like once, even when something becomes the object of your focus of attention, it's changed. Now it's the center of it, of the rest of it. Like the eye is the center.
Well, it's
Totally.
transformed, right?
Yeah.
So things are
Mhm.
constantly transformed. I mean, that is energy. And from
Yeah.
a physics point of view, I remember when we were taught that in physics, like nothing ever disappears; it just moves into a different form. I think
Yeah.
that
Energy is never created, never ever created or destroyed. Here's some of the eyes that they were looking at in the movie. He was, this is, I forget what part of the film it was, but they were started studying the eye and as a way of identifying people. I think was the idea.
Yeah. Well, our eyes are unique, just like our fingerprints,
Fingerprints.
just like our DNA. Our eyeballs are unique, and
So,
we
so
know this.
does that not say that every single person is seeing the world differently by default?
Yes.
because your optic nerve is all different.
No, absolutely.
But that's
Every single person sees it
Every
differently.
single person.
Every single person. So if you go into your day with that premise,
Sure.
there would be no judgment. There would
Right.
be only your own opinion. But
Right.
if you recognize that everybody sees everything differently, you might actually ask another person, well, how did you see that?
But there's a couple things I'd say about that, because there's a part where the guy that's it's either the guy at Axon, which is the company that
Yeah.
makes the tech for tasers and body cams in the documentary, or it was the one of the guys. I think it was him, and they were like, "Wait a second, we used to have the cameras with infrared." But then we
Yeah.
decided, no, 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 infrared is far too. It's not
Look,
mimiking the human eye.
right.
So to assume, like
Oh.
again, that okay, well, we want to make it imperfect, and then of course it's put on the body, which I think the most effective scene in this film was when they went through the mall with a body cam on and saw what you absolutely could not see from the point of view of right here. And I think that was the point of using the pigeons. I think it was like, but also trying to assume that you can see that everybody sees the same way anyway, and that like what that officer saw or not was, to me, add a layer of where you can't argue with it anymore. So there's a
Yeah.
need for people, which is a lot of surveillance, and I think that would like bridge us really well into
Yeah.
the other is, wait a second, humans, wait a second, masses, I know you're getting upset, so we
Yeah.
have this way to keep you all safe, we have this way where everybody can be
Right.
checked, but somehow it never ends up helping the side that doesn't control the technology, right? So you have a group of people that are saying, I mean, how many we've had body cams on, it hasn't deterred any.
Yeah.
I don't think it's deterred much
So
violence.
so now okay. So now you're talking about using observations and technical ways of 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 capturing those observations for justice or criminal deterrence purposes, right?
Mm.
Sure. Yeah.
But I want to, before you even get to that question, I have a different question, or one that leads you to an answer in that justice question. When we take photos by drones or body
Yeah.
cameras,
Hmm.
we what would happen to that information, which we would think is pure because it's not being seen through our eyes, but what would happen if that information was kept without a human narrative? Because all of the photos, all of the
Yeah.
pure technical information is used by humans with a narrative. So what would happen if we didn't
That's
narrate
not
it?
possible. So everybody talks about
It's
this.
not
Everybody
possible.
talks about this with AI, like, oh, it's objective. Oh, no, no, it's written by a human, that code, and it's looking for certain things.
It's trained by
Well,
humans. Humans train
yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
trained by humans, and it's also reading a
Yeah.
language that is written by humans. And if a human forgets one step in that algorithm, which is really just a recipe, then
Hmm.
it's not going to look for something like. That's why we recaptcha. Like, is this a motorcycle? Not a motorcycle? Is
Yeah.
still an effective way to say if it's a human being at this computer right now.
Okay.
It cannot. It still cannot measure. It can't weight things in a way that a human does because it doesn't have experience, which is like, I mean, a whole conversation.
So I'm going to go back to exactly, I believe that even the technical observations or the photos or the drones already have a narrative in it. I don't think there's a single piece of information that we gather as human beings without our own blueprint on it, our own narrative. Because if you have a drone, someone decides where to take it, how low to
Yeah.
go, how far, what your periphery is going to be. If
You
you
still
guys have
you're
a
still moving that frame around. Yeah.
you are, and cameras are the same. Directors
Yep.
are doing
Well,
it
they
from
said it in there
this
with the
side,
cops.
this side, or this side, and so are the cops.
And he
Well,
Every
said,
single
the cops aren't taking the image from up here where their eyes are, right? They're taking it from
correct.
down here, right? And it's like different.
Or even if it's on
so,
their
so when a
eyeglasses.
filmmaker does
Yeah.
Yeah.
this in a film,
Yeah.
this is the frame, right? When a filmmaker
Yeah.
does this, or when they do this, or when they do this, what they're choosing to leave out of the frame
Correct.
says as much as about what's left in.
Yeah.
And that's an artistic choice. but also it's a subconscious choice that we can analyze it. Well, and trust me, with those body cams, somehow they get knocked down, or they're facing the wrong way, or they're looking like, so that the police officer doesn't have to be accountable. I mean, I think there's been a few instances where we've finally seen a police officer have to be accountable, and yet they still somehow know they're doing it. I don't know if you guys saw the, was he a tight end? And it didn't go horribly for him. Tight end for Miami, he gets
Yeah,
pulled
and he
over
got
for
pulled
going.
over.
He got pulled over for going too fast. The whole thing's on body camera, and it's being filmed by onlookers.
Yeah,
And the guy's super famous, coming out of like a Lamborghini. I mean, clearly the guy had money,
I've seen this video. Yeah.
and they still knee him. They still do stuff. So cameras aren't the deterrent. And I think that's what you see with those kids in Baltimore talking about it at the end of the movie. And of course, we're looking at Baltimore, which is just one of these famously really difficult places to be poor and black in, and it have massive amounts of surveillance, broken window kind of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
policies going on. And these kids were like, it doesn't matter. That's what they've reported to their community groups and their community leaders, is these cameras aren't doing anything to help us.
There's a group of there's a group of people in England called the Blade Runners, and what they do is they have these like high-end, like really amazing, fast, like cutting tools. And when they put in like the next level surveillance cameras in the UK, they come at odd hours and they cut them down. They cut them down and they take them away, or they destroy them. And so basically, they make the whole process insanely expensive to like install like the facial recognition kind of software as like a thing to avoid the whole tyranny of the thing. The it's really interesting, Mom, when earlier when you said AI and about, you know, I just learned some stuff about the origins of a lot of the AI that we're using now, the large language models. Language recognition and language modeling was funded by DARPA in order to do this one very specific thing. How could you take transcripts of everything that was happening on social media and
What
then
is
put them
DARPA?
into say it again?
What is DARPA?
DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Program. That's the place
Okay. All right.
where the government puts money for science that then
Okay.
turns into weapons. So
Okay.
the internet came out of DARPA, for example, and like a lot of tons of stuff like the Star
Wow.
Wars in the 80s with the anti-nuclear never materialized. 20 plus scientists died mysteriously, like in the year following that thing ending. It's like very odd, Star Wars. But
Okay.
anyway, the NATO pumped a ton of money into AI research in order to create the language processing capabilities necessary to take all of social media and then channelize people, put people into channels, and then like, and they did it by word recognition, or like they could summarize like sort of they were trying to they basically put everybody into categories. Then they isolated the ones that were against their political views and then started deleting them. And the reason why they did this is because the Donbass region in Ukraine, they had been using First Amendment, like everybody gets to say what they want to like bring about the Arab Spring and all this other stuff, like through Twitter. And then the Donbass said, yeah, we feel like we're Russians. We're going to go be this. And they're like, no, not Ukraine. It's like this NATO project. And so they turned against the populist movements in Europe and shut them all down. And that's why our deep state is fighting us so hard on Trump, is because, you know, they want this foreign policy that maintains this old NATO order. When Putin was interviewed, all this stuff was coming out by Tucker this year. Putin asked Bill Clinton to be in NATO, and he was like, let me check, and he tried to get it done, but Bill Clinton couldn't do it because they wanted the conflict, they wanted the war. I mean, if you have the NATO is about trying to keep nuclear weapons in the in the ground, not active in the world, and uh,
Ask Polynesia about that.
right, where they tested it all
People
out.
that live in the testing and or in what the uh, several African countries that have been their testing grounds. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
But making a transition here into surveillance really quick, but like, so anyway, all of the AI stuff, exactly like what you're saying. There are AIs that can watch video and say, oh, now someone's picking up the box, now someone's walking down the street, now someone in white is entering from the left. It'll like print out all this stuff for you. But like you're saying, it's been trained on human. Some human pulled the frame at some point. You're right. There's no origin. There's no true origin point. That's what I was thinking about for the whole. Okay, so here's the questions I had for All Light Everywhere. Um, what do you think the title means? That's my first question. People can pause it and then move away. And then the title, All Light Everywhere, to me kind of seems to imply that there is some universal one, there is a ground or an origin to it all. If you could somehow see all the light everywhere, like all at once somehow, then you would have some sort of, I don't know if that's omniscience. I'm not sure what that is. What did you guys think the title meant?
It's so funny that like I've thought a lot about this movie and I haven't really I guess you're right. There's some kind of illuminating factor now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah,
Um, also, light is what comes in. I mean, it's with the camera. It's how we
yeah,
absorb. We take in light, and all the information is contained in light. But
yeah,
also, all light everywhere is also the things you can't see. It makes me think of the visible spectrum. And so,
totally.
remember
Wow.
in science class growing up, and this is how much the visible spectrum is of all the light we've identified, and it was like
Hmm.
half, right? So
Yeah,
I think it means we as human beings need and must have answers, i.e., all light everywhere. I want to read the beginning of this movie. The optic nerve is blind. The optic nerve connects the eye to the brain, and the optic nerve receives no visual information, a blind spot. Where the world meets us in our eye, we are blind. We don't know this exists. We invent a world to fill this blind spot in. That's what I think all light everywhere is, because
mm,
we just naturally have to make sense of everything. We have
yeah,
to have answers.
yeah,
And this guy is beginning this entire film by saying, wait a minute, we're built with a blind spot. But yet we have learned to compensate every single aspect in our lives, worlds, everywhere.
yeah,
Everywhere.
yeah.
and the very
Wow.
point where it's all being received, the actual physical point of intersection is where the blind spot is, the
Yes.
moment of
Yeah,
transfer, which is,
yeah,
I mean, it's hard for me to even wrap my head around, but it feels significant.
yeah, 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 yeah.
We're
Yeah, that
born this
you're watching like a biochemical dance more than you're observing light itself in a certain way.
But
Like,
that's everything. That's all science. That's everything. We're
Is that
always just trying.
energy? Is this
yeah,
energy?
light, light's energy for sure.
But wait a minute.
And
If
like,
you have all of this going on in your eye, and we know
mm,
there's a blind spot, and we know
yeah,
that the molecules, I don't understand it like you do, but everything comes together, stays together, and all this energy makes it work.
yeah,
And so our eyes and are doing that from the moment we're born.
totally.
I mean, there's so
If
much
you
stuff
look,
about the eye. Sorry, excuse me.
no, 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 go please.
No, no, I mine was just silly. It was about pigmentation even not existing. Like our
Right,
we all three have blue
right.
eyes. Blue doesn't exist in thing. It's just the fact of where the pigment is and how our so blue eyes is just scattered light,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is,
It's scattered in a special way. It's like the idea that that plants are green because green is the only light they don't need. They're hungrily absorbing blue and red all the time, but they're not green. They don't need it.
and black is all the colors together and
Right.
white no, black is all the colors together and counterintuitively white is the absence of color, or am I backwards?
In pigment world, you're correct. In light world, if you add all the light in, it makes white light. White light is
White is
So
every color, which
yeah,
is what
yeah, yeah.
we
In
think of.
light, like you're saying, light and pigment, subject
And,
and object, observer and subject. These are they're like yin and yang, totally.
and here comes your dark, and you were talking about Star Wars earlier, and you guys were talking
Yeah,
about all
yeah,
the NATO, good versus evil, dark versus light energy. It's really interesting. It seems to be a theme. So we attach on Joseph Campbell. I don't know if you guys have read him. I was forced to in college, and it was really useful because it
yeah,
basically, we have these tropes, we have these models, and we have to basically put everything into like, I don't know, 7 to 10 buckets in order to make
yeah,
sense of them. So we need these
yeah,
models. So everything is about a model. And if something, and they mention this in the movie, that form is impossible to capture because everything exists in motion
mhm,
and that you never actually
that's
see.
right.
And in transformation, like if we see, oh, this is a
mhm.
table that the computer is on right now, but it was a tree, but at this moment it's a table and it will be something else. It hasn't been destroyed. I mean, to me, when we started learning that in philosophy, like 101, I was just really blown away by the idea of form. And he reiterates that in this film. So I just think there's just so many deep things. I actually went on just to see, like,
Yeah.
I don't ever look at Metacritic or Rotten Tomatoes before I watch a movie. I think it colors my idea.
Sure.
And
Sure. Sure.
Roger,
Sure.
which I don't think he actually, they said, oh, he took on too much. It was jam packed full. This movie, it was self important and these kinds of things that I totally didn't agree with. I think he was really trying to take on some big subjects and did it incredibly
Well,
elegantly. If it's not perfect, but I don't think he was
Yeah.
trying to be perfect. I think he's trying to be thought provoking.
but he says, he admits at the end of the movie that he started this project by going into this middle school in Baltimore, and he was going to film these students making their own film. But by the time that he got all the other information that he showed us, he said, wait a minute, I scrapped the whole reason I was doing the movie. So I don't think
Yeah.
he intended to come at this documentary with what I got out of it, but I think he came to that conclusion as he was making the documentary, and he admits it at the end.
I
That's
like what you're saying, Mom, about
big.
the I in the middle of it all, right? Like we
Mhm.
all have to be the protagonist in our story in order to like
Mhm.
set goals, move forward, earn dopamine in the reward cycle of life, and like
Oh
you know,
yeah,
and dopamine is self-esteem and like the whole thing.
yeah,
The and that's where Joseph Campbell and the hero with a thousand faces comes from, is the idea that the reason why you have myth and the structure it is that's the story that people tell universally to themselves to move themselves forward, like to
right.
like keep like take another
We
step, and it
need
works
those
on like
stories.
almost anyone. Yeah.
We need those stories. We can't. It would be too much if we couldn't. If we weren't putting it in. And the interesting part is it's always different. You can tell the exact same story a million different ways that have the exact same plot points and hit the thing. Like we also have expectations of story. We frame our lives in terms of stories. If we didn't, then I don't know that we would get up and keep going.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Hence,
really, I mean, religion is all stories,
hence
right?
all
Yeah.
light
Yeah.
everywhere, because light is your story. It's your autobiography. It really is. And everywhere is the idea that that's what keeps us moving. That's what moves us forward. Otherwise, what would your purpose be? And I think the purpose is so simple. It's not
Yeah.
whether you have 5 kids or whether you've climbed Mount Everest. The purpose
I have
is
not climbed Mount Everest.
is really your autobiography. What is it that you see? What
Hmm.
are you doing with what you see? How do you
Yeah.
tell that story? And how do you interact with the person who sees it differently?
You
And we
guys haven't
are
brought up.
always mostly looking at ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you haven't brought it up, but the Buddha, that's one of the four like noble truths, is that everything that is was in another form previously and will be in another form later, and that process will never end. That there's a
Never.
like it's just a giant kaleidoscope. Depending on the time scale you look on it, whole galaxies are going through this, like quite quickly, like popcorn and stuff.
But
The
if you think of
Yeah,
the world like that,
yeah.
you can get through anything.
You're a part of this continuum, and you can't not be a part of it. And sometimes in people in their heads and their minds, they try to like abstract themselves away from it, but no, you're right here in the flow of the whole damn thing. The stars becoming whatever they're becoming, you're right there in that
But
fizz.
then the problem is, and I don't want to get too far off on this, the problem is people live in the past because they can't handle the fact that everything is a continuum. There are people who just can't handle that thought.
Well, I don't think we can even
So
do
we
it like,
live in the
It's the
past.
moment, like the electric living like current moment, like
but
yeah.
And that is Buddhist.
our
That's
machines
Buddhism.
and eyes, I remember like the first
Yeah.
time I heard this was in The Lion King, the animated movie when I was a kid. And
Yeah.
Pumbaa looks over to Timon and he's like, hey, Timon, did you know that those are all the stars are dead? They're like some billions of years or millions of years old. And I was
Yeah.
just like shocked by this idea. But from our eye, they're right there. They're twinkling. But
That's
we're
right.
quite literally in the past. So um, time and perspective is like
So right.
everything. And just the pictures that are coming out now from the new James Webb that's
James
coming
Webb.
up. Just how you're like, wait a second, this is not how things rotate, how we're expanding, contracting, what a black hole is. I mean, it is, we know nothing and we're trying to make sense of it
With a
constantly.
new eye, right? Webb telescope is like an eye, like a special eye that's like incredibly sensitive and beyond what we can see. Did you? This blew my mind when I learned this the first time. If you take the spectrum of light that goes from one energy particle, a neutron leaving an atom, like that, like on one side, that, and then like you got like gamma level of radiation. It's like the smallest kind of energy you have, and then you have the largest energy you have on the other side of the spectrum, like all the way through from blue to purple or purple to red that we see. Why do we see that purple to red? That those are the exact wavelengths of light that propagate underwater. If you take a white light and shine it underwater, the only light that'll go through the water is that wavelength. And like this shows that our eyes grew up in a environment that was aquatic. And that's why when babies are conceived, the amniotic fluid is like 80%. It's like the same balance of minerals that seawater is. Essentially, we're like little fish when we're fetuses, right?
You're
We're
right.
like swimming in this ocean, this ocean, and it might be from a time this might be the way that biology is reminding us of this time when we were more like that, some ages ago. But yeah, there are insects that have evolved on land that see in many more frequencies that are transmitted both through air, but their eyes came into being much later on in the whole process when there was actually land to do it on and stuff.
Doors of
So,
That's
perception.
really interesting. Wow.
well, when you say doors of perception, do you mean Aldous Huxley and his doors of perception when he was
Actually,
making that in the
William
50s?
Blake was the first one to do it, and then the doors took
Really?
from that. Yeah, William Blake, as far as I was taught, and I know he was the
Yeah.
first one about doors of perception, but it's obviously something that he observed in life, like a shark. It's why I have a big problem with saying what is intelligence, and we talk about, oh, we've decided, we humans, from our point of view, have decided an
Oh.
octopus is intelligent, is sentient, has feelings. What do you mean a shark is seeing the world through electromagnetic waves? We
Yeah.
like we have no idea.
Energy,
I think ants have feelings and
magnetism.
language and art. We're just constantly shocked by because everything is from a human perspective.
Yeah.
So I
Filtered
mean,
through a human nervous system.
right.
Totally.
So I
You're right.
think
You're right. The William Blake quote is, "If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite." From The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, William Blake, 1790. Well, Aldous Huxley brings that up as his primary metaphor in his Doors of Perception, which popularized the quote, which was him taking mescaline with his wife and his secretary, taking notes on all the stuff he was chattering away on while he was, seeing the isness or the suchness of the world, like the as isness of it, and under the influence of mescaline.
I had a
Um,
professor that was trying to make it cool. So he brought up Jim Morrison was actually he was aware of Blake and Huxley,
right?
and so it was very deep. He wouldn't just randomly think of doors are a very important symbol in it for
Yeah.
humans to understand. And I think actually Matt upstairs, who's getting ready to put our baby to bed, he wrote an entire essay just on doors in different cultures when he was in his
Wow.
undergrad.
That's
Um,
so cool.
yeah,
I want him to do some drums on this album I'm working on called Computational Yogurt. I'm gonna send you guys some tracks and I want to see if he can record some live drums over it if you really do, or his electronic drums would be good.
he would love that.
Can I
I
ask?
think that'd be super fun. Yeah.
So being a lawyer, this
Yeah,
is one of
yeah.
the questions because in this film, um, we were introduced to Axon, which is a company that makes surveillance, technical um, weapons and devices that are marketed for criminal justice purposes. Okay.
Totally.
So my question is justice dependent? Justice is justice dependent upon information?
Mm.
And if so, to what extent should we go to gather this information?
When you say justice, capital justice like that, I think about the lawfare and the downgrading of just the honor of it in our society these days. And what comes to mind immediately is the only place that the real justice is in the conscience of the people. like in the hearts and the conscience of the people, the justice can't be sort of turned off in a certain way. Like that's where it can truly be done. But yeah, no, when you're when you're talking about uh nice, nice. When you're talking about uh gathering evidence, then the choices that are made by Axion and their tasers that are integrated with their body cams and their cop cars that are integrated with the whole system, and they are, he says it, the CEO says it over and over again, this is for the court of law. Like every
Mhm,
choice we make is about the court of law. Like you don't
mhm.
want your camera to see in the infrared because then you can fucking tell it was a gun, and but the that's not how the human saw it. The human doesn't see an infrared, so you can't put that in there. And so that's what they were doing. They were degrading the quality of the camera to make it so it was more like human sight,
Exactly. Exactly.
so that your what do you call it, the jury would like be, the empathy of the jury is like very contained within a certain way.
And it should be said. I
Right.
mean, what did you think? Because I was very interested in your take on this because
So you can't put
you've been a litigator in your life, so you've had to prove things, right? Arguments to prove, and you do think of things. When I was watching the movie with mom, she was very much looking for like evidence of things. Like you didn't feel like the introduction of the study that had the neurosensors or the brain sensors was really returned back to you, which I never really
Right.
thought of. You just have a very different way of, of digesting things, and you brought up a few things like that in addition to what would matter in a court and why.
So if I go back to my one of my original premises is which is
yeah
everything we see and do is an autobiography. So this CEO of Axon, he did state that he believed his his purpose was to provide, I think, evidence for a jury to make decisions on criminal matters. But look how he's already editing
yeah
how that.
the wide angle lens he was admitting it makes it seem like everything, it pulls everything in closer. Your regular eye does not bend light like that,
No,
like
and if
it doesn't see 130 degrees, it sees like 70 degrees.
and if your gun empowers everything else around you to gather information from all the different areas,
yeah
what good does that really do if you have to give that to a jury of our consciousness, our peers?
yeah
What are we doing? Are we giving
yeah
them a reality or a picture that doesn't actually exist?
When you're talking about AI, you're talking about the ability to take brain signals and like remap them. Like
Yeah.
they're remapping visuals now, where you can have basically a thing on your head, and it can record what you're seeing through your neurological stuff. I bet there's going to be probably within not too, I mean, probably not too long. You've got that for where people are, if they're lying, if they're not lying, if they're, are they pulling this from memory? Are they pulling it from creative? There could be a lot more. You could give a score, an overall score to how authentic somebody is saying and what it is. But here's the catch with this whole thing you're saying about framing and that. In the last podcast we did, we were talking about the killer, and in it, Michael Fassbender, his character, this assassin, he goes, take comfort in the knowledge that over 80% of all convictions are done through direct eyewitness testimony. Meaning that it's like incredibly fallible. Like we write
Right.
the story and we invent whole worlds. Like my favorite example of this is
Right.
9/11.
That's
They
the
interviewed they took like 100 people and they interviewed them right after 9/11, and then 10 years later they re-interviewed them and said what happened at 9/11. What And the stories changed radically for people who were supposed to be professional observers, like cops and other sorts of people. Like some people, they were close to the buildings on the day of, and now they're across the bay watching it. And it's because they watched so much media and told the story. And every time you tell a story, your brain is loading up. It's kind of like a
it's the
it's
memory.
it yeah, the memory is, it's like there's no storage in the mind for memory. It's almost like a vibration in the universe or something like that, like a
Yes, you're
morphogenic
right.
field.
That's
Every
right.
Yeah,
single time you remember something,
you rewrite it,
it's
you
actually
change
less
it.
and less accurate each
Yeah,
time
every
from the
time.
time It's kind
That's
of
right.
beautiful too. I mean, and I think that's also probably something that existed in evolution in order for our survival. You don't
Right.
want to remember everything. There's a Black Mirror episode where there's
Yeah.
like a couple and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember last Thursday. Well, let's pull it up." And then it's like, eek, like you can see
Right.
everything because the
Right.
camera is watching all of
Yeah.
their lives, and you don't actually. You nobody would like anybody. I read this amazing book once called The Mind of a Mnemonist. You love it. It's
Yeah.
super short nonfiction. Have you heard of this? So it
I have
was a
not heard of it.
study with a guy who's a mnemonist, so they have like a freakish memory, right? But it talks
Okay.
about what they lose. So this guy could read like Dante's Inferno and literally
Yeah.
not speak Italian and recite it all back to you. These are these people that can just and but then to give him emotions to read or certain other things or the meaning behind a play and he can't remember it. So emotional
Uh,
resonance is really, really important. I think that brings us back into AI again. There's a friend of mine that you would probably love to nerd out with. His name's Martin, and Martin is a machine learning scientist. He quite literally has developed cameras and all kinds of software. He works for Mila,
wow.
the Montreal Institute of Learning Algorithms. He's got a PhD in this, or he's defending it right now. But we get into this discussion of AI and this kind of perfect memory. It's like, well, computers don't have perfect memory, and I always argue, well, it can never mimic that of a human's as much as you try because it doesn't have the emotional resonance. It's going to care about different things. So it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Memory is a beautiful thing. We have
Should we go to the captive
we
state?
have
We
to.
should totally
We
start.
have
We
to have
have
a
to. Okay, we'll
real
switch.
It's yours,
Okay,
your choice.
here's the bridge. Here's the bridge. Adam Curtis wrote makes these sets of documentaries, like 9 1-hour documentaries, like
amazing.
amazing. In one of his more famous ones, he tells the story of a guy who was working with West German or East German intelligence, and it was during the 60s and it was very turbulent and there were all these young people and they were running around and they were hanging out on each other's couches and they couldn't track them in order to stop them, and what they were doing is they were blowing a lot of shit up. They were terrorism. It was like they were blowing things up like Weather Underground in the United States, right? And what this guy said is, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to build a system, and we're going to put all of the database in for for electricity and for rent and for just anything like phones, all of it, and then we're going to use that to like track these people. And they caught them. They caught like 40 of them, and they pulled them out. But the guy said, but once we find them, we need to destroy this system and never use it again because the invasion of personal privacy will change our world forever, and no one wants to live in the world it will create. Now,
Wow.
clearly, they never turn that damn thing off, right? And now it's next level. Like with your phone, it's like sometimes tens of thousands of times a minute it will send information to, on the orientation of the phone, the amount of light in the room, the humidity, the temperature, all of it. At the location on more than anything. Um, and that
Which
is
Adam
what.
Curtis movie is this?
What's that now?
Do you remember which Adam Curtis documentary this is?
Are you out of my mind? Or can't get you out of my mind? I think I can't get you out of my head. Can't get it out of my head. Yeah, we might want to get into some Adam Curtis eventually, Meg. I think that would be. I think that'd be. I
Genius.
think people. Yeah,
He's
that's like.
genius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that shit's deep, and it's fun to watch too. It's fun to watch. The
Country of Myself was one of the most illuminating documentary series I've seen. Did you watch that?
No.
Jack and I were obsessed with it for a
All
little
right,
bit.
captive state bridge.
Captive State Bridge. Okay, so Captive State. The I've got some visuals here we can go through. So it's this. Okay, so first off, it is participant media, and participant media always has a triple scorecard for all of their movies.
Oh,
First
yes.
off, does it make money? Second off, is it entertaining? Is it fun? And the third and most important one is, does it teach the audience something? And that's why you feel like you're sitting at a lecture when you're in some participant media movies, because they get a little far into that third one. But you got to ask yourself, like, what's the deeper thing here? This one, they put it out, and there's these deep things in it, and they barely even touch the surface of it. Like it was almost like it was too hot. And okay, so what is
So,
it teaching?
yeah,
Yeah,
what's
what's its purpose? What would you say would be the purpose of the movie? That'd be a good question to start off with. You can pause and like answer this question. Why make? What are you teaching people about when you teach them these set of ideas? Like, what is it?
Well, I think like one thing in was particularly with the end
Yeah.
is like the whole idea that it is something is insur. I think one of the themes was nothing's
Hmm.
insurmountable, and even if
Yes.
you're not going to change all of it, it's not worth giving up
Yeah.
uh, to try to. I mean, that was the whole rebellion,
Yeah.
it was that idea for
So
me.
what was the saying? Start a war, light a match.
Light a match, start a war.
Okay.
Start a war. Yeah.
And if you start at the end, this boy that was selected to be
Yeah.
the hero,
Yeah.
the younger of the brothers,
Yep.
showed you how he was connected to all of the insurgents.
Yep. Yep.
And at the time he was born, they did not know that they would be where they are today.
Sure.
You agree? Okay.
Yeah. Big time. Yeah. Totally.
Okay. So one message is family,
Yes.
and the other message is you will do anything to keep your family together and safe. And I don't mean just living
Yeah.
together, I mean existing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know how you connect the end with the video to the beginning. Other to me, that would be the message.
That's a great one. That's an awesome one. What do you think, Meg?
Yeah,
Of the theme?
yeah. What's the
Yeah.
message?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Why would
mean,
participant media greenlight this one? Like, how does it satisfy that third
I
party
mean,
Wait,
I have to
audience?
be honest with how I felt about the movie. It did warm up for me. The setup, which is how I feel about most.
but what
Uh,
was the message?
thank
Okay.
you. I think it was a heist movie, which I thought was because why didn't they go into those deeper themes? Was it a budgetary constraint? Was it that, I mean, so for me, that the middle third was quite boring. I don't like it. I don't like chase or heist films, but the setup of why would they, the whole idea that everybody is always talking about the world coming together. I've been thinking about this a lot since COVID. The world coming together, and
Yeah.
we did not come together for COVID. We were completely. There was so much
Hmm.
dissonance about what was going to be effective. I mean, with a little pesky virus. Now imagine aliens land on the planet. We are
Yeah. Four
screwed.
four nucleotides, four DNA edits on one virus was the pandemic.
It just
Totally.
threw us in, and now the whole world has like money issues. People stole money, did this. Now, what I loved about this film, it was like that just that setup was so different. Well, and this is something that my partner pointed out to me is that he was like, well, for once people aren't all getting along. And for once,
Yeah.
there are, of course, there would be people that are like that are like, sure, we'll mess with you guys. We'll definitely do what you say to the aliens, and that was really really interesting to me because it made me
Yeah. The
stop.
collaborators. Yeah.
Yeah, the collaborators with the and that they
Yeah.
were so willing to call them legislators, and they were so
I
willing to do
know.
all this so they could keep. So how easily we gave up really gave me a
Yeah.
second's pause, and
Yeah.
I kind of got stuck on
That's
that
yeah.
emotionally in the movie a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Like I
And
was like, this is what would happen. So
I think
sorry.
that's a huge theme of what I think that's a huge part of what that participant media was saying was that this is what giving up would look like allowing this level of invasive surveillance in your life. You are giving up your right to be a free thinker. You're giving up your right to express. You're giving up your right to listen to others and to create peaceful assembly. And when you do that, it's already gone. Like you've already, and then the dynamics of the human collaborators, and they even go into it in the plot in the writing of it, where they say no, they've got a name for it in like Uganda, like or someplace where the invading force comes in and they don't want to fight all of the units. They don't want a genocide. What they want is a slave army. They want you to make sugarcane for them, or in this case, extract the resources from the earth. I think that this movie was designed to get you to contemplate what it's like to be overtaken by an invading force, like an empire larger than you, and like how it subsumes your culture and how your leaders will act and behave. And like you said, I think I think they hit the nail on the head pandemic wise, like even before it came out, like the willingness of people to go along with the
Yeah.
insanity of the official narrative for safety, you know. And it's like that's like not safe. It's like not safe at all. Like, you know, it's like that's like the worst idea. Safe would be a lot of people disagreeing and then the right answer percolating to the top through scientific inquiry. You know, that would actually be the safest way to do something like that. But I think it was a warning about human collaborators in your political system. I think it was also a warning about this entity, the aliens. It can be other things too. Like you could just swap out corporation, and it's almost the same dynamic. It's like, you know, the Chiquita, the banana company shows up someplace and they want to, like, you know, they need plantation workers, and so they just like do this thing. It'd be very similar to the dynamics in this movie, right? There was there were so many cool things in this movie, and so many cool visuals, but the this image particularly haunted me for a really long time. And just
Beautiful.
this idea that you could get used to anything, even something ugly and abstract. Dude, how many years has it been since Edward Snowden told us that the United States government has been violating the Fourth Amendment continuously, hoovering up all American stuff and all the stuff that the tech industry does? This all has a chilling effect on our democracy, and the idea that it's not accounted for, and that you've got James Clapper in front of the Senate. The NSA does not wittingly collect information on anybody. It's lies, lies, lies. Like not true.
Well,
like they.
yeah, I mean, I had a big problem. Like, so not to get too political, but it is almost
Yeah,
November, and I was really interested in this conversation where the Supreme Court had a case last year, which is actually not totally decided on, about the censorship from social media. Even it wasn't
yeah.
with like when it happened with Hunter Biden's laptop. The idea that they waited, installed, and decided to censor that information, and we don't know what would have happened. We
FBI.
can guess, but we don't
Oh,
actually know.
the election was decided by a very small number of votes, and the margin of people that are swayed by
It
something of that
always
magnitude
is.
is large.
And my
Yeah,
friends, so
always is. Yeah.
I have some friends who then have been talking about. So I brought up the censor to censor something, and or even about vaccines. I took a vaccine. I don't know. In hindsight, like it wasn't tested. That's just a fact. It was not tested. I took it because I wanted to travel out of the country, so I did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
I've
far,
done a
I'm
lot of this.
okay. But the fact that anybody was questioning that and saying they didn't want to do that, that was really scary to me. And now that I have friends who I love and respect, and they are very democratic, but they're saying, well, if it's for public safety, it's okay to censor it on social media. And I said, but who's deciding what's safe? Who's
That's
deciding what's
exactly right.
public safety? Yeah, like, and they
And
go,
will
and
it
they
only be used for
have
that?
no they have no problem with it. And that is so terrifying to me that they said, well, no, the safety now and democracy is at stake. It's like, well, how can you say that and reconcile it with what you just said? I'm really scared that that free speech isn't more important to people right now, because those people did not have
Free
free speech in that
You get
movie.
rid of the free speech, then that curtails the critical thinking, and that curtails the ability to identify propaganda, which it all is. And especially when you're talking about, you know, the same companies that own the defense contractors own the media outlets. Operation Mockingbird was exposed in the 60s. Imagine what they have now in terms of like the you could see the coordination. Do you remember what it felt like? Um, in the pandemic, they were like COVID, and then they were like shots, and then do you remember the feeling when overnight it became Ukraine? Just like on one day. Like there was
Oh,
a
yeah.
brief period of time where it was like you never heard anything about boosters anymore, and then you just heard Ukraine. And then later on, then it became the war in Israel and supporting of Israel. And it's the same pipeline. And this is where this Mike Benz guy has exposed a lot of it. The CIA hasn't been is not supposed to. The State Department topples and undermines 80 elections a year, and they do a lot of dirty tricks. But one of the dirty tricks they do is they call it transitional justice. So if you need to fix the election in Mexico City and you make it easier to fix it next year, when one political party gets in because you gave them a bunch of money, you make them put all their opponents in jail, and therefore you wipe out a whole generation of feelers, and a whole generation of life in their society. They're all in jail or they've been assassinated. And they do this for 80 elections every year. The State Department. This is the NATO wing of our. This is the how the United States imposes empire. And this is the threat that a populist movement like a Donald Trump poses to that, is that it could be a different foreign policy that wasn't based on that kind of snuffing out of human potential, like so intensely. And the Anyway, that pipeline, the CIA is not allowed to operate in the United States, except there was like the Brown Law in 2013 gave them the right to do it. And then now they can, and the CIA pumps the money in through the Department of Homeland Security, and they have the censorship industrial complex, which is literally hundreds of billions of dollars of money going to places like Stanford for the Internet Observation Research Observatory, and they also do it for migration. So the whole migration crisis is caused by these $60 million grants being given to people to like truck migrants into places they shouldn't be in the United States. And then the other part has to do with the censorship industrial complex. Anyway, this is like an X-ray, and Mike Benz was the Secretary of State, so he knows how these things work, and he speaks quite widely on it. That's been the thing that really hit me about captive state. It's like when you have a system working against the individuals, call it totalitarianism, it'll have certain qualities. And then the movie like went into the details on this a lot. More visuals from the movie. This is the hero from the end. John Goodman actually turns out to be the hero. You think he's the
Spoiler
spoiler alert.
alert.
Spoiler alert! I know you should have paused by now, baby. In the end, he's the one who delivers the bomb that like turns the war. And so, what is heroism? Is sacrifice. It's like old as time itself, right? He like gives his life for this higher cause. The the
But can I say something?
yeah, of
I
course,
think he's the hero and set up the
they're all the
future,
hero, the whole group. Yeah,
yeah, of the younger generation. So
yeah.
so he
He gave himself for the next generation. Yep.
right. And as you look back on it, pure spoiler alert,
Yeah.
he uses the two brothers in
Yeah.
order for him to gain access to the underground to carry off the bomb. And
And they planned it that way.
they planned it from the very beginning, even with
That there would
the
be something for him to discover.
right.
Yeah.
But the other theme, it's a very common theme, and that is that you have to sacrifice yourself for for the majority of others,
Yeah.
for others. And it was a very small group of people that sacrificed themselves knowingly for the future of another generation of people.
That's right.
Also,
And
there would have been nothing left had they not done that. I mean, the way that people were kind of living, the song that was really striking to me that they were singing um, in the stadium when the alien came down.
Well,
I
they
mean,
took
yeah, totally.
our anthem and changed the words.
I was
I
super excited.
know.
I was
Yeah.
super excited to finally see like somebody like it was a UN conference like doing the translation. But I really I was sad about in the movies that I didn't get to see like that kind of arrival aspect where Amy Adams is like actually like
Oh
this
no,
woman.
they hid that part, right? Because they're kind of really weak. Like they've got those weird suits on, but they tear off their masks, and our atmosphere kills them in like a second. They if they got into a land war with us, that wouldn't be the way. So how do they control? They control through the through cutting off the communications. It's right there in the poster. You can kind of see it. You can see the this is Chicago, so that's the Willis Tower, what we used to call the Sears Tower. That little Sauron-like eye, which is very much like Lord of the Rings, right? Control and power. It's like you see how it's like warping. Everything looks like it's kind of warped, like the ground is warped. It
Sure.
distorts the reality. That's the To me that's the commentary on like the weight of all of this. Like your political ideas are so terrible that you have to censor everyone on the planet to get them done. Maybe they're not supposed to be implemented, man.
I mean, that's
It's
really good.
like
And also how easily we're so scared of like where people did fall into line, which goes again with your pandemic comment, because these
yeah.
guys they couldn't survive above ground, and we were just so willing to give everything up and do the walled off city, and and the plan failed. And I love how there was just only the message too was, I mean, there was like five guys in the rebellion network. It wasn't some big.
No,
They made
no.
it very
That's
small.
I think that's a very important point. Mom, you were making that point too. It's not everyone. It's the hero is like it's a small number of people that
Yeah,
decide to do something for everyone. That's like the
sure.
writing of the Constitution. That's like all revolutions. It's not you don't have to convince them all. You have to convince some of them, right? And I love that. I love this. This is an image. It didn't even come from the movie, but it was from their website, where it's like this the individual versus the machine, kind of the system.
But
The
wait a minute, it did come from the
I
movie.
remember that from the
That
movie
came from the
too.
movie.
Yeah. Oh, okay, right on. I might have missed that one. I might have missed that scene. The
Yeah,
I love this. I
I
love
remember
this.
him. I don't remember him being there, but definitely the shot
yeah,
because I was like, oh, it's
he
like the
was
new.
there.
It's like a new, like outside of like the
Yeah.
windmills in the water. It's
Oh
like
So
this
yeah, yeah,
kind of thing that
yeah,
people get used
can
to.
can I ask this?
yeah.
But tell
Sure.
me when you have a question. Okay, so where would you be? So you know that they divided everybody to live inside the walled city and those
Yeah.
that lived outside. And the ones inside, they're the ones that had all the color and they had the money and they were treated well and they were like
They were
they
paid
drank the
off.
Kool-Aid, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying they all did, but that's how they portrayed it.
Yeah.
Um, and where would you be? Would you be outside the wall or inside the wall?
I think honestly, it depends intensely on your surroundings and your environment in a lot of ways. Like if you are sort of on the middle class or poorer side of things in a societal context like that, you have a certain outlook on how the world is. And then if you're from the time you're born into an elite and you're told it's your divine right to rule, you're influenced in a different way, right? It's like
Every
that plays a huge part into it. Of course, you'd love to think you'd be a rebel, right? You'd love to think you'd give the finger to the man and like, blow the whole thing up and be in the right place at the right time. But like the movie is like a Swiss watch. It's like every single part interlocks and it's like it's masterful. I mean, it really I've seen it probably a dozen times, maybe more. And
I do think I'd be a rebel.
you'd try to be, right? You'd want to be. But think about how
I,
much rebellion you're doing now. You got to kind of analyze that too. Like how many things are you saying in a public way that could get you in trouble on somebody's radar, especially with these tools of mass censorship that they're right here watching the transcripts. They're
Well,
doing the whole thing.
I don't want to get too
remind me to
political,
tell you how little my
but
technology works sometimes, and I think that I'm definitely like I have the worst relationship with all technology. And Matt and I are convinced it's because I've been like, I have some kind of like internet credit, like a social credit, and mine is very low. And I have been flagged as just like a misbehavior, not something to worry about, which is sure her internet connection never works and her technology always breaks. That's my theory, guys. Keep end up this
no, we,
conversation.
oh,
I'm going
we could
to.
to-
I'm
we
going
could
to pop out. You guys, please conclude it. I have to do bedtime, but I love you both. Finish for
all
five
right.
minutes.
no no no
I'm,
no no we can finish on this. We can finish here. We can finish here.
I'm so sorry.
It was no, no, it's okay. Megan, it was wonderful talking with you about Captive State. Mom, also a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime you'd like to join us. Megan, do you have any thoughts for your movies for next time?
Oh yes. I was going to ask you a question. Would you like something
Yeah.
more comedic and surreal, or something more kind of dramatic and theatrical?
Give me some examples here.
You have two choices, and one is one, and one is the other. What
No,
is
no, I
called?
know, but can you?
Oh,
What are the movies? What are the movies?
okay. So they're both French movies.
Okay.
But one is called. There's this guy that I really love, and
What's the name of the movie?
that he's in a bunch of movies, so I watched everything I could with him in it.
Mm.
Vincent Lindon, and he's in
Okay.
something called La Moustache, the mustache. And
Yeah. Okay.
basically, the premise, all you need to know is that he one day he shaves his mustache, and his wife and other people just don't notice, and it
Ah.
starts a real mental spiral for him, that nobody knows because he's had a mustache for like 30 years. It's funny and surreal and just really interesting. And then the
Yep.
other one is a choice is the same guy that did the movie Holy Motors. He's
Hmm.
Aleo Carax. I might be saying his name, or Cara. I think
Hmm.
he's Belgian or French. Anyway, he did something called The Lovers on the Bridge, or Les Amants de Pont-Neuf, which is
Hmm.
basically one of the most expensive sets for a movie ever built, but it's about homeless people. And it is
Huh.
so Juliette Binoche is in it, and she is, first of all, just one of my favorite actresses ever.
Hmm.
She's so good. This movie was something I avoided for a really long time because I was like, a movie about homeless people on a bridge with that title, it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
sound fun. But it honestly, it was amazing, and I want to force people to watch it. You're the only
Yeah.
person that I.
Okay.
Watch a movie.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Let's watch it. That second one sounds fun. Let's do that second one.
Lovers on the
Um,
Bridge.
Lovers on the Bridge. We'll do that one. Okay, I've got two from you to choose from. Okay,
Okay.
Civil War, the Alex Garland one. I think there's some things to say about
I've
it.
seen it.
Me too. I think you wouldn't have to rewatch it. We could just jump right into it. And the other one is called The Oath. Have you ever seen this one?
No, but I picked The Oath. I don't
Okay.
want to spend any more of my time talking about that Alex Garland movie.
No problem.
The Civil War, you talk about somebody who was trying to make a music video when you're talking about
Yes.
these
The Zephyrs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, The Oath. I'll totally watch The Oath. Is there
Oath, yeah.
more than one oath? Is it a year? Is it recent?
Let me see here. Okay, The Oath. It's got what's her name in it? I think it's 2023. No, that's the wrong one. 2018. Let me see here. Yeah, it's 2018, and it's got Tiffany Haddish in it.
Got it.
Yeah, 2018 hit Tiffany Haddish. Yeah, it's more psyops.
America Thanksgiving. It's perfect.
I know. It's the
You
perfect
guys are
time to.
great.
It's the perfect.
Thank you for inviting me. It was
You are
fun.
so very welcome. It was wonderful to have you.
My two kids.
Will you come back?
I
Totally.
will come back upon request.
You definitely
Excellent.
invited.
We'd love to have you.
Dynamic. We're already
Well,
improving from last time, Paul.
We're already improving. We're totally improving. We're making awesome. We're doing awesome stuff here.
You
What we're gonna
watched-
do is go ahead.
She watched last time.
Dude, and that other link, I just wanted to, that last point is that's Lou Elizondo basically saying that there's like definitive proof that our government is in contact with other species on some level, either reverse engineering. Yeah, 100%. And so you wonder how much Captive State is just the thing you look back on and go, oh yeah, of course. Especially with all of the surveillance and the tech.
That's another great conversation that I would love, because I live near Los Alamos.
Dang, right. Yes,
I know.
Cheryl does a lot of work out there.
I think about this often.
I feel bad.
I do, because I know there's stuff going on over there that I don't know if I want
billions
to
of dollars a year.
But these people, So anyway,
I think we could have talked about Captive State a little bit longer. I think so. Maybe
no
we
big
should
deal.
do like a sand.
Leave a little ink in the well on that one. I got the files, and we can bring up these themes in the future as well. We'll see you again. We'll see everybody again next time. Megan, it's wonderful to talk to you.
Love you. It's so great to spend the last 2 hours with you. I'm going to spend another hour or two with her. Mom leaves tomorrow, so.
Very nice. So cool that you're up there, Mom. I love it. Megan, in that box I sent you, that quartz is from Brazil. It's like a really pure kind of quartz. I met the people who got it out of the ground. They're real sweethearts. And that kind of stuff is good for purification. You can put it all throughout the home, but not the other stuff, not great for kids, because I wasn't thinking about it for the kids. The other stuff was all rounded edges on that one.
We'll grow into it. Is that amethyst?
That is just quartz, this crystal quartz. Yeah.
Even the purple?
If it's purple, it's amethyst. Yeah. There might be some amethyst mixed in there.
2 eggs that were.
Amethyst. Okay. Yes, those are amethyst. That's right. I was looking for something that wouldn't necessarily be a swallow hazard for a baby, and also wouldn't hurt them. It was I was at a mineral show. Everything has sharp edges.
We're almost to the end of the stage where she puts every single thing in her mouth, but like literally the hedgehog, she laughs every time you squeeze him because he makes a sound. And
that's great.
I line up her toys on the couch, or all of the guys you got her every morning, and she comes down. Did I send you that video? She comes down and she literally goes, and she goes over, she like talks to him. It's really
that's great. That is really great. I'm glad she's interacting
with her. So
very nice, very nice.
I love you so much.
Love you too. Have a wonderful night, and take care, everyone.
Bye.
Blessings on your journey deeper into movies.
See you next time.
Okay.
It's inside you and it shines so bright. You are the real truth, the solid vessel filled of light. Yes, there is guidance inside you. It's in you and it's shining bright. Truly there is God inside you. Oh, it's shining and it's shining bright. Oh, it's shining so bright. inside you. It's inside you and it's shining so bright. I want to see it, I want to see that light. That bright, bright light. It's shining and it's shining so, so bright. You've always been true and now God is awake inside you. You found the light and now you shine so, so